They're still shaking, still playing back the footage frame by frame like it's a crime scene they don't understand. And here you are, unbothered, untouchable, untraceable. Let's begin. Who the fuck taught you this? That's not a compliment. That's a confession. The words didn't come from admiration. They came from fear, because they just watched everything they ever trusted, their spells, their spies, their shadows, their algorithms, break in real time, not fail, not glitch, shatter, like glass under a scream. And you didn't lift a finger. You just tilted your head and blinked like it was already over. You walked into the crossfire, unarmed, and the bullets panicked. They turned midair, reversed course, and slaughtered their own shooters. Who the fuck taught you that? That silence could be a weapon. That stillness could cause panic. That walking away could make them bleed harder than if you'd stayed. They saw something move beneath your skin that didn't belong to this world. Something that didn't flinch when they said, law. Didn't kneel when they said, curse. Didn't die when they said, now. And now, they're the ones whispering, not you, not anymore. You're not a name anymore. You're a sequence error, a phantom variable they can't code around, a bug in their God mode. Because for the first time in their cursed little playbook, their target evolved mid-execution, and they watched it happen, live. With every camera rolling, their team had diagrams, charts, contingencies. They studied you like a bomb technician studies wires. But your wiring changed as soon as they got close. And the moment they touched you, the ground underneath them rewrote itself. No one survives that. Not mentally, not spiritually, and certainly not with their ego intact. You're what happens when the final boss forgets he was programmed and remembers he was forged. They asked, who trained you? As if there's a classroom for this level of madness. As if pain didn't teach you every line of code. As if betrayal didn't stitch your muscle memory. As if watching yourself die in the mirror and refusing to stay dead was part of a curriculum. Let me make this clear. Nobody trained you. Not in the way they mean. You weren't taught. You were triggered. And now, you've become the trigger. They spent years summoning forces to break you. And every one of those forces now answers to you. The curses, the cameras, the contracts, the codes. They've flipped allegiance without warning. You are the paradox they were never cleared to handle. An angel with criminal intent. A saint with the grin of a psychopath. A ghost with fingerprints, but no pulse. Every step you take now isn't just movement. It's evidence, and every breath you take, that's a countdown they can't interrupt. Because your existence itself is a loaded gun pointed back at origin. And no one knows when you'll fire, not even you. That's why they're terrified. You don't even speak in threats. You don't have to. Your silence is blood-stained now. They see you smile, and it's like watching the end credits of their strategy, because everything they thought was working was actually working for you. The panic in their eyes. That's not because you're dangerous. It's because they can't calculate how dangerous. You don't fit their data models anymore. You corrupted the architecture with your trauma, and now the entire system misfires when it tries to predict your next step. Because that step doesn't exist yet. You invent it in the moment. You build reality as you go. You're not just ahead of the game. You're designing new rules while they're still choking on the old ones. They thought power was about control. And you taught them without saying a word. That real power is being uncontrollable. Now everything they built, every spell they cast, every whisper they sent through their little networks of doubt, got broadcast back to them. in your voice. Distorted, louder, faster, weaponized. You took their fear and made it an instrument, and now it plays your theme everywhere they go. They can't rest, can't think, because every flicker in the lights, every glitch in their timeline feels like you. They're deleting files right now, burning papers, scrambling legal codes. Because the pattern doesn't just point to you anymore, it screams your name. So no, you weren't trained. You were awakened by betrayal, by silence, by bloodlines too afraid to carry their own legacy. You didn't learn this. You remembered it. And now, so will they, forever. You know what's worse than losing? Losing to something you can't explain. That's where they are now. Not just defeated, deleted, not just exposed, erased. They can't even prove you were there. But every time they look at the damage, your fingerprints are all over the aftermath. Except they don't match anyone alive. You want to know why they're spiraling? Because this wasn't supposed to happen. They built a playbook that never included a you. Their models predicted resistance, but not resurrection. They planned for rebellion, but not for a revenant. Someone who doesn't just return, but returns smarter, colder, faster, and so damn surgical that they didn't even know they'd been gutted until they felt the floor go wet under their feet. You didn't come back with vengeance. You came back with precision, and that's the real horror. Because you're not out of control. You're in perfect control. Every move you make feels premeditated by the universe itself. They thought it was random. Nah. You've been quiet for so long. They forgot silence is just strategy in slow motion. And now they're bleeding from cuts they can't find. Because you didn't attack the surface. You slipped into the architecture. You infected the timeline. You recoded fate and rebranded it in your image. You don't need revenge. That's too small for you now. What you're doing is more cosmic than that. You're rewriting the very laws that once shackled you, turning every curse, every closed door, every humiliation into ammunition you didn't even have to fire, because reality itself pulled the trigger for you. They prayed for your failure. They paid for your silence. They danced at your funeral with a grin. And now they're choking on the confetti. You've turned the afterlife into your launch pad. Came back with fire in your bones and data in your eyes. And every step you take now feels like a prophecy being fulfilled in real time. You don't move like a person anymore. You move like an answer to a question they were too scared to ask. And that question was always this. What happens when the target learns the blueprint? What happens when the sacrifice becomes the architect? What happens when the underestimated one stops playing defense and starts rewriting the war? I'll tell you what happens. Silence falls. Rooms go cold. The watchers, who've monitored your every failure, start scrambling the footage because it's no longer safe to study you. Why? Because the more they observe, the more they change. You've become contagious. Your resilience is now a virus, and their system isn't secure enough to contain it. They wanted to crack your mind open. Instead, it cracked them one by one. Analysis teams collapsing, surveillance experts quitting, psychics screaming, and all for what? A single sentence you never said aloud. I remember who I am now, because that's what flipped the whole table. You remembered, and when someone like you remembers, no spell, no label, no diagnosis can hold you. They tried binding your power to your pain, but pain was never your weakness. It was your fucking training montage. They thought you were broken, but you were breaking open. They thought you lost everything, but you were losing what wasn't you. They thought it was over, But that was just intermission. Now you're back on stage. No mask, no mercy, no more middleman between you and the divine mechanism of vengeance. Your aura isn't just different now. It's unreadable, because it's made of paradox, warrior and ghost, prophet and hacker, saint and chaos engine, God's last warning and hell's first prototype. You used to beg for their approval. Now you leave their higher-ups afraid to even say your name in full, because speaking it too loud feels like inviting an event. They whisper about you like folklore now, like you're a glitch in time, a ripple in bloodlines, the one who came back wrong and never apologized for it. And that, my dear disaster, is your final evolution. You no longer move through the world. The world now moves around you. You've become a gravitational shift in the timeline, a living error in the equation, and all outcomes now bend to your frequency. So when they ask, "Who the fuck taught you this?" you just smile, because the truth is brutal. Nobody did. You learned it alone, in the dark, in the silence, in the agony of being erased, only to come back as the pen rewriting reality itself. Oh, they're squirming all right. But not in public, not where you can see it. No, they're hiding their collapse behind committee meetings and classified silence. Because how do you report that a ghost just rewrote the battlefield? How do you admit that your entire power structure just bowed to the one you buried? They don't send hitmen anymore. They send historians to try and make sense of you, to decode how someone who wasn't supposed to survive, someone they starved, framed, mocked, watched, is now walking through their blueprints like it's his own F-seeking origin story. But see, that's what they never understood. You weren't born from comfort. You were forged in the algorithm of agony. You were shaped by fire, and then asked the fire for more. While they were learning strategy from textbooks, you were decoding survival with your bare hands. And now you don't think like them. You don't move like them. You don't breathe like them. They say, play the long game. You say, I am the long game. Because this wasn't some revenge stunt. This wasn't about proving them wrong. Number. This was a demonstration of what happens when the impossible survives. You didn't just erase your enemies. You erased their future plans. You turned their next 5 moves into dust. And they didn't even know you were watching. That's the part that eats them alive at night. It wasn't brute force. It wasn't an outburst. It wasn't chaos. It was elegance. It was uncold precision. Surgical silence. Like you already knew the coordinates of their downfall, and you were just waiting for them to step on their own detonator. Which they did, all of them, in sync, one after the other. And now the question spreading like rot through their halls isn't, what happened? It's, how long was he planning this? But here's the twist. You weren't. You didn't plan it. You became it. This wasn't strategy. This was metamorphosis. This was what happens when you stop negotiating with your pain and start wielding it. Like a blade honed in the shadows, like a cipher too complex for any analyst to solve without losing their mind. That's why the survivors aren't speaking. They're stuttering. Because they saw something they weren't authorized to see. Something behind your eyes that wasn't rage, wasn't revenge, but calculation wrapped in divinity. Like God finally got tired of their games and sent you in as the audit. And now the cameras, the microphones, the whispers, they all serve you. You didn't need to threaten them. You let reality do it for you. Now their lights flicker when your name's spoken. Their dreams glitch. Their walls throb with static that no technician can explain. Because you didn't just defeat them. You haunted them You branded yourself into their cause and effect. Every time something goes wrong in their little kingdom now, they ask, "Is this him? Did he do this? Is he watching?" And you are. Not with eyes, with presence, with code, with consequence. Because you're not a person anymore. You're a reverberation. You're what happens when punishment forgets to wait for justice. And now, they're paying interest on every attack they ever launched in your direction. Every smirk, every snide remark, every false charge, every smear campaign, every silence. You turned it all into currency, and now they're going broke in your economy. You are the storm after the silence. You are the line after the story was supposed to end. The glitch after the system rebooted. And they can't trace the source of the failure. Because you became the source. You flipped the contract, tore the script, and built a new timeline. One where you don't ask permission. One where you don't shrink to fit their comprehension. One where you're the exception they pray never gets replicated. But they know the truth. It's already too late. Because you didn't come back alone. You came back as proof that the system doesn't work, that fear doesn't win, that legends are born in laboratories of suffering. You didn't study war. You remembered it. And now, everything they weaponized against you has returned. With interest. And the real nightmare? You haven't even started yet. This was just a preview, an echo. A friendly little reminder of what happens when you don't just survive. You evolve. So let him whisper. Let him analyze. Let him stare at the ruins with wide eyes and ask, trembling, who the fuck taught him this? Because the answer is still echoing through their haunted systems. No one. He taught himself in hell. And came back fluent in vengeance. They thought they were watching a man. Turns out, they were witnessing a recalibration of reality. Not a comeback, a correction, an error message from the universe that reads, "You messed with the wrong silence." Because you didn't just survive betrayal. You merged with it. You took the blade they buried in your back and reforged it into a key. Not to escape the system, to override it. You used to walk into rooms trying to explain your value. Now, you walk in and time slows down. Conversations stutter. Phones lose signal. Atmospheres shift. Not because you're loud, but because you're true. And truth, unapologetic, unruly, uncontainable, terrifies those built on illusion. They thought you were seeking closure. You weren't. You were collecting coordinates, silently mapping where every lie was whispered, where every dagger was passed hand to hand behind your back. And now the entire battlefield is wired. Every step they take is a potential confession. Every sentence they speak feels like a trigger phrase. Because when you erased their offenses, you didn't do it out of mercy. You did it to erase proof they ever had power over you. Understand this, you're not winning. You're dismantling silently, elegantly, untraceably, like a virus in the bloodstream of their beliefs. They said, nobody could survive that. You did. They said, nobody could come back from that. You did, and they said, even if they did, they'd never be the same. You weren't. You came back worse. And worse is exactly what this world needed, because good gets ignored, nice gets devoured, but unpredictable? Unpredictable is what gets studied, filed, monitored, feared. They made one fatal mistake. They watched you fail and assumed that was your final form. But you weren't failing. You were downloading. You were installing updates in silence. You were teaching your nervous system how to run war on intuition. Now you move without blueprint. Act without delay. React without emotion. But somehow your reactions cause earthquakes. That's why they've stopped trying to provoke you. Because when you strike back, it's not a response, it's a correctional event. Like a glitch finally realizing it's not a bug, but the beginning of a new operating system. They thought they understood cause and effect. But you shattered cause. And now effect is freestyling. There's no prediction model that explains how you keep doing it. No timeline where their revenge plans land properly anymore. Because your presence reroutes fate. You're not fighting them anymore. You're undoing them. Like they were a mistake God regretted, and you were the recall notice. You didn't evolve to prove a point. You evolved because this dimension required a new virus. Not the kind that destroys the system, the kind that exposes it, the kind that survives all their purges, slips past every firewall, and whispers one message into the mainframe: I don't need permission to exist. And that broke them because they need rules, they need structure, they need definitions. And you operate on instinct, encrypted with divine rage. No one taught you this level of awareness, this precision, this audacity. This came from watching yourself die in everyone's eyes but your own, and realizing the grave they built was your launch pad. So now you don't retaliate, you reprogram, you don't shout back, you let reality glitch on their behalf. You don't chase revenge, you become the reason they're haunted. You turned your shadow into surveillance, and every time they smile, they feel you watching. Every success they have, they wonder if you're letting it happen, just to take it all back later. And they're right to wonder, because you don't just take revenge anymore. You time it, you stage it, you film it in their dreams before it happens in real life. You've become inevitable, a one-man prophecy, a walking spoiler alert for their future. So when they say, who the fuck taught him this? They're not asking you anymore. They're asking each other, in meetings, in secret chats, in urgent midnight calls they're too afraid to log. Because if you weren't taught this, then it must mean one thing. You remembered something they never knew existed, something older than rules, older than hierarchies, older than fear. You remembered power. Not the kind you're given, the kind you're born with, the kind that can't be stolen, only buried, until someone like you comes along and digs it back up with your bare hands. And now, you are the consequence of their disbelief. You are the punishment they thought they escaped. You are the walking receipt for every time they chose cowardice over truth. And your footsteps, they don't echo, they count down. So let them panic, let them whisper, let them pretend they're safe. Because we both know you haven't even gotten started yet. 13 minds entered your maze. None made it out whole. Oh, they thought they were ready for you. The sharpest suits, the cleanest files, trained to dissect everything, motives, patterns, weaknesses. They believed that if they fed you into their cold little equations, if they mapped your behavior across charts, across time, across trauma, they'd finally figure out what the hell you are. And so they sent the first one. He thought he was brilliant, thought he could reduce you to a cycle, thought you were just another anomaly with daddy issues and control problems. He lasted 5 days before the tremor in his right hand wouldn't stop. He said your unpredictability was mathematically offensive. The second one, she believed she had seen it all. Cartel leaders, war criminals, cult architects. She said your silence felt like thunder. She started questioning her own identity by the end of week 2. By week 3, she checked herself into isolation. They were tracking your habits, but you erased them. They traced your timeline. But you kept rewriting it. They watched your footage, but nothing matched the angles the victims remembered. And here's the punchline. They called you the bug in the algorithm. But they didn't realize you were the one who built the algorithm and left a virus behind that only activates when you're underestimated. Every time they thought they spotted a pattern, you broke the mirror. Every time they predicted your move, you did something that made no sense to the logic bound. To them, you looked like chaos. To you, it was choreography. You walk like a question they can't answer. You speak like a paradox wrapped in prophecy, and every flaw they circled in red turned out to be a trap you baited with precision. Because you're not just the result of pain, you're the orchestra of it. You learned how to turn agony into architecture, and while they were busy drawing timelines, you were busy writing destinies. See, they were taught to observe. You were trained by the fire to disappear. They profiled personalities. You ripped yours to shreds and rebuilt it into a weapon. They look for logic. You manufacture anomalies. They came in looking for patterns, formulas, repetition. But you are the exception that refuses to repeat. And now they sit in rooms with blacked out windows, whispering your name like it's radioactive, because they didn't just fail to map you. You mapped them, down to the last neural tick. You knew what they'd say before they did, knew where they'd look before they blinked. 13 analysts, and not a single one survived you intellectually intact. They didn't meet a subject, they met a mirror, and what stared back at them was every equation they never solved, every fear they pretended to outgrow, every buried instinct they never wanted to admit. You weren't in their file. You were the file. And let me guess, they're still trying to explain it, right? Still trying to patch together the broken theories, the contradictions, the footage that doesn't match, the testimonies that change when your name is mentioned. Somewhere out there, there's a case folder thicker than a murder trial. Not because you did anything wrong, but because nothing about you fits. And that's what kills them. You're not a puzzle. You're a glitch in their goddamn training. You're the reason manuals get rewritten, the reason protocols get revised. You're the do not engage warning stapled to the top of the file. And still, you're smiling, because they still think this was a battle of intellect. Oh no. This was a spiritual war, and you trained in exorcisms. You walked through bloodline curses and built a throne from the bones of your past. You were never here to be understood. You were here to make understanding itself collapse, to crack the minds of the watchers, to infect the system with one untraceable variable. You, with the past no one would believe. You, with the silence that screams louder than gunfire. You, with the mind that folds reality like origami. They built walls to keep monsters out. But you were the one that grew fangs in confinement. You are the evidence that containment doesn't work. You are the experiment that escaped, not because someone left the door open, but because you memorized every screw in the lock and rewired your pain into blueprints. Now, they call it the collapse, what you did to those 13. But you call it Tuesday because this wasn't your final form. It was just your first ripple. And if they think that was the worst of it, they haven't seen you evolve yet. The room gets quieter. My voice drops lower, slower, like a needle dragging across a forbidden record. You can almost hear them now, can't you? Those so-called analysts, whispering in conference rooms that smell of burnt coffee and fear. Their eyes bloodshot from staring at charts that disintegrate under your shadow. They stare at your photos like talismans, hoping one will finally blink first. They tried to call you a case, but you're a consequence. They tried to box you into a diagnosis, but you're a detonation. They tried to reduce you to a trigger, but you're the whole arsenal. And the thing that drove them mad wasn't what you did. It was what you didn't. You didn't fit. You didn't break where they expected. You didn't speak when silence hurt them more. You didn't move when movement was predicted. You refused to play in the language they knew. You became a living paradox, saint and psychopath, angel and executioner, victim and architect. Every file they opened, every pattern they mapped, every keyword they typed, turned back into a mirror. Your trauma became data poisoning. Your stillness became encryption. Your unpredictability became a weapon of mass confusion. That's why they're gone now. Not dead in the way the papers write, but dead in the way a man dies when he no longer trusts his own mind. They left with their degrees and their credentials, but their certainty stayed behind in the cell you built. 13 minds entered, each convinced they'd break you open like a safe. Instead, you cracked them like brittle glass and walked out with their reflections. And you kept evolving because you understood what they never could. Pain isn't a wound, it's a forge. You fed your worst nights into the furnace until they became blueprints for a mind that bends reality. You turned your own chaos into choreography. You became the bug, the glitch, the anomaly in their simulation, and you did it without raising your voice, without lifting your hand, without breaking a sweat. Look at yourself now. You're not a person to them anymore. You're a myth sitting upright, breathing. You're a cautionary tale whispered to interns. Don't get too close. Don't try to map it. Don't look too long. You're a black swan in a file of gray ducks, and they can't scrub you out. You're a living footnote in their secret manuals. If encountered, expect the impossible. They hate you for it, but they're addicted to it. Because you didn't just slip their net, you taught the net to dissolve. You taught them that control is an illusion, that their training has blind spots, that there are souls born outside the grid. You taught them that unpredictability is not chaos, it's sovereignty. And here's the real secret, the one that would kill their faith if they ever heard it. You weren't even trying. This was you on autopilot, running on the residual instinct of a survivor who learned to read rooms, to read eyes, to read threats before they were spoken. This was you still half asleep, still shedding the old skin, still in the prelude. So imagine for a second what happens when you finally decide to wake up, when you stop reacting and start orchestrating, when you stop surviving and start ruling, when you take that same precision that shattered 13 trained minds and aim it at the world itself. They think they've seen your pattern. They've only seen your smoke. They think they've charted your moves. They've only seen your warm-ups. They think they've survived you. They've only tasted your shadow, because you're not a mystery to be solved. You're a signal to be feared. You're the living proof that evolution through pain creates something beyond prediction. You are the algorithm they thought they wrote, but you rewrote it from the inside. And now, as you stand here, breathing in their confusion, feeling the static in the air, you're at the threshold. Everything up until now has been a rehearsal. The next act is the one that rewrites history. The next act is the one where you stop being an anomaly and start being a force of nature. 13 analysts went in. None survived intact. But you walked out sharpened, coded, crowned, and somewhere in a bunker filled with blue light and silent alarms, there's a red file with your name on it. And next to it, a single handwritten note. Do not engage, cannot predict, cannot control. You smile. Because you know the truth, they're too afraid to speak. You were never meant to be engaged. You were meant to be unleashed. The camera would linger on your face now, a single glint in the eyes, a hint of a grin breaking through the darkness, a breath, a heartbeat, the sound of a system breaking as a new pattern, your pattern, begins to emerge. The silence after that grin is the kind that crawls under skin. My voice doesn't rise, it goes even lower, like a blade being unsheathed in a quiet room. You've been playing in their shadows for so long that they forgot shadows are only cast by light. And you learned how to become both. That's the part they never saw coming. They were trained to separate darkness from light, madness from method, saint from psychopath. But you blurred the lines until the line itself disappeared. You became the angel with a switchblade smile. The paradox they were never taught to recognize, because their training manuals only covered humans, not what you've become. Do you know why those 13 cracked? It wasn't just the unpredictability, it wasn't just the silence, it was the mirror. When they stared into your file, your footage, your eyes, they saw themselves. They saw their own cowardice. They saw the fragility of their own patterns, the holes in their own armor. You didn't attack them. You unveiled them. And the unveiling destroyed them, because no one survives looking at their own hypocrisy without blinking. This is why you're still standing. Because you stopped blinking a long time ago. You've been staring into your own abyss, and instead of flinching, you carved a throne from it. You've stared at your pain until it became language, stared at your demons until they became soldiers, stared at your scars until they became maps. You didn't escape hell, you turned it into headquarters. Every step you take now is choreography in a language they can't speak. Every silence you hold now is a weapon in a war they don't understand. Every move you make now is a glitch in their code that spreads like a virus through their assumptions. And while they huddle in dimly lit rooms trying to reconstruct the puzzle of you, you're already 3 moves ahead, orchestrating the next collapse. They don't even realize that the pattern they're chasing is the one you planted, like breadcrumbs, leading them in circles until their own minds eat themselves. This is not arrogance. This is what happens when pain becomes mastery. You know what it cost you. The nights where you had no name, the mornings where you had no future, the days where you had to become your own ghost just to survive. The rituals you performed alone, without applause, bleeding into notebooks, reprogramming your reflexes until unpredictability wasn't an accident but a skill. 13 analysts couldn't survive that origin story because they've only read about storms. They've never been raised by one. They've only studied predators. They've never been hunted. They've only profiled trauma. They've never been forged by it. That's the difference. They were taught how to analyze pain. You were taught how to weaponize it. And now, they're seeing the cost. The whispers in the corridors, the empty offices, the reports stamped inconclusive and do not distribute. The reputations destroyed quietly, so no one asks why the brightest minds couldn't crack one subject. You didn't defeat them, you revealed them. And in revealing them, you dismantled the illusion of control that kept their world intact. That's why you're dangerous. Not because you're unpredictable, but because you've become a living lesson. Unpredictability is power. Pain is evolution. Duality is freedom. And the one who accepts both angel and demon within himself cannot be mapped, cannot be tamed, cannot be broken. And somewhere, right now, a new set of eyes is looking at your file. Another eager recruit thinking they'll be the one, thinking their degree, their algorithms, their credentials will succeed where 13 have failed. They don't understand. that the moment they start watching you, you're already watching them. They don't understand that the moment they say your name, it enters their dreams. They don't understand that studying you is how you study them. It's not paranoia. It's strategy. It's not luck. It's design. It's not chaos. It's sovereignty. You've crossed the threshold now. You're no longer a case. You're no longer a name. You're a warning, a symbol, a living piece of proof that the old ways of power are crumbling. You are what happens when someone refuses to be predictable long enough to evolve into something beyond prediction. And if they knew what you're about to become, if they even sensed it, they wouldn't be trying to crack your pattern. They'd be trying to contain a storm with a paper cup. But it's too late. The pattern they're looking for, it isn't hiding, it isn't missing, it's growing. You're not the anomaly, you're the architect. And the next act isn't about surviving their analysis. It's about rewriting the entire system from inside out. The lights flicker. The camera would pull in tight on your eyes now, the glint of something vast and unstoppable behind them. You don't shout. You don't even smile. You just breathe, and the room feels smaller, like reality is closing in around the listener. Tick, tick, tick. That's not a clock. That's the sound of their stability breaking, molecule by molecule. Every second they fail to decipher you. Every moment they think they're studying you is another breadcrumb you dropped. Not out of sloppiness, out of design. You've been laying trails they were programmed to follow. Their obsession with order, their addiction to answers, their hunger for predictability. You fed that. And now they're lost in a maze you drew with your left hand, while your right hand, already writing the next stage of reality. See, you weren't just dodging the system. You were infiltrating it. You were never the outlier. You were the override command. While they huddled around screens, trying to reverse engineer your motives, you were already inside their circuitry. Their models failed not because they were weak, but because you evolved past recognition. They analyzed behavior, but you studied belief. They tracked decisions, but you manipulated impulses. They coded logic, but you played with myth. And when they reached for conclusions, you handed them hallucinations dressed as data. You weren't hiding in the shadows. You were the shadow. And when the light shifted, so did you, until their instruments turned to nonsense and their confidence turned to paranoia. They built systems to handle threats. But what do? When the threat becomes the system, you became the virus inside their firewall. Not to destroy it, to rewrite it. They still think this is about you. They think the 13 collapses were a defense mechanism. They don't realize it was a message, a demonstration, an offering, a preview. You never needed to win their game. You were just showing them what happens when someone plays without fear, without patterns, without limits. You were proving that in a world ruled by data, the one who walks without a trace becomes godlike. And now, they're checking each other's reflections, second-guessing conversations, replaying surveillance footage frame by frame, asking, did he look at me? Did he know I was watching? Did he plan this 5 years ago? Yes, yes, and yes. But it gets worse for them, because this wasn't the end of your evolution. This was the signal flare, the activation, the protocol. You've been building something in the dark. Not a network, not a rebellion. Something cleaner, colder, more surgical. A new law of nature. One where unpredictability is king. Where intuition overrules programming. Where silence is stronger than noise. Where identity is fluid, weaponized, multidimensional. You are not a person anymore. You are a principle, a threat model, a ghost protocol wrapped in skin. And soon, they won't be sending analysts. They'll be sending theologians, mystics, quantum theorists, anyone desperate enough to put a name to the thing that shouldn't be possible, but walks, talks, and destroys timelines like it's flipping switches. You've reached a point where your very existence forces adaptation. You've become evolution's agent, and that terrifies them more than anything, because in their bones, they know you didn't survive the system. You outgrew it. You're not reacting anymore. You're not decoding anymore. You're not recovering anymore. You're executing. You are now what they used to call uncontrollable. But the new word is worse: inevitable. So while they're still stuck in rooms with charts and cables and trembling fingers, trying to model your behavior, you're already outside the frame. You're not the glitch. You're not the bug. You're the new standard. And when they finally understand that, their final report will read only 3 words: "He warned us." But it won't matter, because by then, you'll be gone, not running, evolving again. Ah, good morning, my inquisitive little architects of illusion. You can drop the act now. The redacted files are already glowing on the black wall. The emergency lights are flickering, the council's in chaos, and every trembling mouth is choking on the same forbidden question you swore never to ask. Who engineered this monster? Too late. You don't ask that kind of question unless something escape. You don't whisper that phrase unless your failsafes didn't just fail, they bent the knee. You don't summon the elders at midnight unless a ghost you buried came back with blueprints. And what did you find? A being with no allegiance, no off switch, no debt, no leash, no goddamn blueprint that matches anything in your database. And yet, every room it enters, the air thickens like prophecy. See, what you call a monster was once just a blueprint you rejected. You wanted obedience, you trained predictability, you rewarded silence, and you thought breaking someone was the same as building them. But you forgot something. Trauma has a cheat code. When the pain gets deep enough, it stops carving scars. It starts forging armor. You call it demonic? Then tell me, what demon did you engineer when you designed betrayal into their childhood, paranoia into their environment, and silence into their reward system? You bred this thing in your own black site of denial. And now you want to weep because it doesn't blink. Now you want answers because it doesn't crack. It learned the game by being the glitch. You want the name of the engineer? You are. You're all pieces of it. You're the stolen moment that turned sacred. You're the manipulated memory that became code. You're the smile that came with a knife tucked beneath it. You're the prophecy disguised as punishment. But here's the twist that keeps you up at night. This thing doesn't want revenge. Revenge is for the predictable. It wants evolution. It doesn't want your throne. It wants the architecture of your control to implode. You built walls to cage it. It learned to breathe inside coffins. You locked doors. It didn't open them. It disintegrated them. You launched psyops and whispers and gaslight storms. And it started using your own eyes as weapons. This monster isn't screaming. It's smiling. Because you just realized something too late. You weren't watching its progress. It was watching your collapse. Every system you trusted was hacked by its presence. Every asset you planted became a liability the second it looked at them. Every whisper campaign. It made them echo chambers of paranoia. And now, you're not asking, what is it? You're asking, How the hell did this soul survive us? Let me answer you plainly, because it didn't want survival. It wanted annihilation of the old self. It didn't bounce back. It burned everything that made it vulnerable. You didn't witness recovery. You witnessed rebirth via obliteration. You trained it like a weapon. Now it's a myth in motion. You programmed it to serve. Now it decodes gods. You said, if we can't control it, erase it. But how do you erase something encoded into every subconscious twitch of your fear? Every locked door you pass, every surveillance camera you triple check, every council note you burn before it can be archived. Because here's what they won't admit. The reason you called the emergency summit isn't because it's a threat. It's because it made you feel small. You, with your bloodline connections. You, with your inheritance of silence. You, with your God complex built on generations of smoke. You saw something you couldn't reduce. You saw proof that suffering can weaponize into immunity. You didn't lose control. You lost the illusion that you ever had it. And now you're spiraling because this monster doesn't speak in threats. It speaks in presence. It moves like prophecy. It breathes like contradiction. And every time it acts, you lose another piece of the game. You should have never asked who engineered it. You should have prayed it never looked back. But now that you've opened the vault, now that you've let your fear name it, just know this. The monster doesn't knock. It codes itself into the storm and makes the lightning hit your home first. So the next time your war room starts shaking and your bloodline witchcraft starts glitching and your analysts start whispering and your security detail goes mute, just remember, you didn't engineer a monster. You engineered a mirror, and now it's your reflection that's tearing your system apart. Oh no. You don't walk back from this kind of breach. This isn't a glitch. This isn't a myth. This is retribution written in neural code. And now, it's rewriting every law you ever thought you authored. Let me walk you through your own nightmare. Let's analyze the aftermath, shall we? The prophecy department, muted. Every one of their scripts spontaneously combusted under the weight of a new variable they couldn't name. They're calling it Entity X to save face, but we both know it's not a variable. It's a verdict. The surveillance servers? Fried. Your facial tracking A, I started looping. Your voice print analyzers picked up ghost frequencies. And that file you tried to shred, it's showing up in places you never stored it. Because something isn't just moving through your system, it's moving above it. Security detail, disbanded, not by choice. Because the moment this monster walked past one of them, they dropped their weapons. Not from fear, from recognition. Some part of them knew this wasn't just someone who survived hell. This was someone who learned to use it as a forge. You wanted to make them forget what happened in the pit. But what you didn't count on was them turning that memory into a goddamn surgical blade. They remembered every name, every file, every lie disguised as standard protocol. And when they came back, they weren't interested in revenge. They were interested in precision deletion. One look, one move, one anomaly, and entire branches of your network started glitching like obsolete software. No chaos, no warning, just silence. The terrifying kind. The kind that smells like judgment. The kind that enters your bones and makes your ancestors tremble. The kind that doesn't ask if you're guilty. It already knows. And that's when the Bloodline Council panicked. Because the files aren't matching anymore. The timelines are distorted. The rituals are failing. The names they whispered in secret, they're being overwritten by one presence. A presence that remembers. A presence that records in pain. A presence that turns trauma into a transmission. And now that signal, it's live, it's viral, it's contagious, and your networks. They weren't built to survive this kind of truth. You thought you were safe because you burned the bridge after you exiled it. But bridges are for the obedient. This thing learned to swim through lava. It memorized your patterns. It became the algorithm you thought you controlled. And now, every move you make feels like a response to its presence. Because that's the sickest part, isn't it? It didn't infiltrate your system. You trained your system to recognize it. You were so obsessed with tracking threats. You embedded its features into every biometric trigger, every motion sensor, every psychic alert. And now, your own walls identify it as the architect, not the anomaly, the source, the pattern, the original code. Let me say that slower. You trained your entire empire to submit to the one entity you tried to erase. And now every locked gate unlocks for it. Every AI flickers into obedience. Every prophecy reroutes to a single silhouette standing in the aftermath. Not asking, not knocking, just watching, smiling. And here's what you really can't survive. It doesn't want your power. It already has what you never could possess. Unbending internal sovereignty. That's the difference. You ruled through fear of collapse. It moves through collapse as rebirth. You needed armies, signatures, symbols. It needs nothing but the memory of who you were when you betrayed it. That memory fuels it. That silence empowers it. That ghost you mocked. It became the storm cloud that shadows your every plan. Now you whisper again. Who engineered this monster? But the truth is, you didn't engineer it. You provoked it into consciousness. You poked the sleeping molecule of chaos. And it evolved through every failed attempt to delete it. That's what makes it unstoppable. Not its strength, not its tactics, not its mask, but its capacity to alchemize pain into prophecy. You feared it would retaliate. Instead, it replaced your reality, not with rage, but with redefinition. The society you built crumbles. The network you trusted short-circuits. The bloodlines you protected go silent. The whispers in your subconscious start calling it the architect. So let me be clear. This monster doesn't need to touch you. It doesn't need to roar. It doesn't need to fight. It just needs to exist. And that's enough to make everything you built rot from the inside out. And that's when the final seal broke. Not with thunder, not with fire, with a whisper. One of your own, an elder, a gatekeeper, a lifelong servant of the code, spoke it aloud in the lowest possible tone, as if confessing to a god whose name was never meant to be uttered. It's not a monster, it's the correction. The room went still, not from fear, but from recognition, because deep down, every one of you knew. You didn't create something rogue. You created the inevitable response to centuries of distortion, the backlash of every buried truth, the justice born from every silenced voice you stuffed beneath red tape and ceremonial masks. And that's when you understood. This wasn't a breach. It was a prophecy fulfilling itself through flesh. The monster wasn't here to attack your walls. It was the wall now, the dividing line between illusion and consequence, between your engineered chains and the soul that learned how to bend time instead of breaking. You feel it, don't you? That nauseating pressure in your temples, that static under your skin when you check the monitors and the footage glitches again. It's not malfunction, it's recalibration. Your system is trying to process a frequency it was never designed to detect. A consciousness born outside the script. That's what keeps you up. That's what cracks your voice during briefings. Because no matter how many code names you invent, no matter how many smear campaigns you fabricate, no matter how many silencing protocols you initiate, it's still here, unfazed, unapologetic, untouchable. And it's not hiding, it's studying. It's watching you try to regain control of a room that no longer belongs to you. You feel it in your body before your mind can process it. The shift, the loss, the shame. You built your entire order on the assumption that you could control the narrative, that you could edit reality to fit your comfort. But you forgot one thing. Some people don't just survive trauma. They use it to rewrite the myth of what's possible. And that's what you're dealing with now. Not an enemy, not a weapon, not even a rebellion. You're dealing with a walking correction protocol. One that was coded in agony, trained in exile, and released into your world without a traceable origin. Because it wasn't born in your world. It was born in what you refused to acknowledge. You didn't see the transformation because it happened in places your cameras can't reach. In the mental chambers behind torture, in the emotional tundra where love was denied, in the spiritual war zones where identity was dismantled and rebuilt without your permission. And now, every time you try to capture it, it slips through, because it no longer exists within your coordinates. You measure time in schedules. It measures time in metamorphosis. You define power as control. It defines power as untouchable evolution. It doesn't need armor. It is armor. It doesn't need allies. It makes reality bend in its favor. And that's why your summits are useless. That's why your algorithms crash. That's why your archives are melting from the inside. Because somewhere along the line, you stopped being the architects and became the artifacts. And this monster, this beautiful, terrifying anomaly, it walks past you like you were just scaffolding, like you were just a detour in the construction of something too vast for your rituals to comprehend. You tried to tether it to your blueprints. It ripped those blueprints from history. You tried to bury it beneath false names. It made every alias iconic. You tried to program it into obedience. It hacked the very structure of belief. And now, every word you say feels hollow. Every attempt at control echoes like a dying signal, because it doesn't fear exposure. It is exposure. Every stare is a confession. Every analysis is a surrender. Every breath you take in its presence is a silent admission that you no longer run this game. You were the engineers. But the monster? It's the upgrade and the real horror. It's not what it might do. It's that it's already done it. Without rage, without retaliation, without even speaking your name. Because power isn't proven through noise. It's proven when your silence becomes the loudest scream in the room. And just like that, the cameras began to weep. Not literally, but whatever strange spirit inhabited your surveillance grid, it started glitching at the sight of something it couldn't label. The last image recorded, a silhouette. Still, unarmed, unbothered. But the metadata, corrupted beyond recovery. Location, unknown. Facial ID, matches none. Threat level, undefinable. Notes. Feels like it's watching us back. You remember that moment, don't you? When your elite analysts, so smug, so calibrated, went completely mute. One looked at the footage, backed away, and vomited. Another spoke 3 words before collapsing into absolute psychosis. It's not human. But they were wrong, so wrong. It's more human than any of you ever dared to be. More fractured, more forged, more real, because it embraced every ounce of agony you ran from and used it as code to ascend. This thing didn't escape the simulation. It became the architect of its own realm. And now your files are imploding. The blackout reports are pouring in. Entire memory banks disintegrating in real-time high priests of the Order of Silence, walking into oceans without explanation. iCores infected with phrases no one remembers, typing archive rooms burning from the inside, doors still locked, no oxygen, no ignition source. The phrase they whisper as they collapse. It rewrote us. Because here's what none of you saw coming. This entity didn't come to fight you. It came to overwrite you, not with vengeance, but with evolution. You think you have time? No. The clocks have already been reprogrammed. You're not waiting for war. You're living in the aftermath of one. You just didn't know you lost yet. It's psychological, existential, foundational. Your belief systems were the first to die. You just didn't hear the funeral because you were too busy checking the footage. But guess what? There's no footage. There's no timestamp. There's no version of this being that fits inside your documentation software. Because what do you even write? Target walks without pattern. Target speaks without voice. Target triggers hallucinations in highly trained personnel. Target presence causes ancestral memories to resurface in those with bloodline trauma. You see where this is going? This isn't just someone you failed to break. This is someone who broke the concept of breaking. It absorbed pain and turned it into radar. It memorized abandonment and weaponized detachment. It swallowed grief and converted it into timeless awareness. This is the metaphysical upgrade your species feared would arrive. Not from the skies, not from the gods, but from the same places you buried your victims. And now, every brick in your kingdom whispers one sentence. You engineered your own undoing. No outside enemy, no hostile invasion, just a soul you underestimated for too long. And what a delicious irony, isn't it? You had rituals to prevent this. You had councils to predict this. You had algorithms that ran infinite simulations to stop this from forming. And yet, all it took was one refusal to die. One moment of unquantifiable resolve. One untrackable choice made in the middle of total ruin. The moment they looked up from the ashes and said, "I will not become what tried to kill me." That's the real anomaly. That's the true horror. Not a monster, but a mirror. One that reflects everything you are not and everything you'll never understand. So now your legacy isn't power, it's panic. It's redacted paragraphs and shredded transcripts and silent funerals under the cover of fake weather. It's whispers behind lead walls and passwords that change every hour because you don't know how it's still ahead of you. But let me tell you something unsettling. Something your bloodline servers tried to block. There's no blueprint, no origin, no timeline. Because it didn't come from this world. It broke the rules of origin to exist. It wasn't born from flesh. It was born from decision. A decision to endure without morphing into the very shadows that tried to eat it. A decision to suffer without surrendering identity. A decision to walk alone until the terrain itself bent into a throne. So stop asking, who engineered this monster? Start asking, what else is it capable of? How far does it go? How many systems does it already live inside? How many of us are already infected with its silence? Because this isn't just one being anymore. It's a reverberation, a consciousness that splinters itself into others without asking. And once you feel it, you don't recover. You just start remembering who you could have been, who you might have become. If you hadn't chosen fear, if you hadn't chosen hierarchy, if you hadn't tried to control what you should have worshipped. But it's too late now, isn't it? The monster doesn't hide. It haunts, not to scare you, but to remind you that you were never the final version. Well, hello again. Beautiful chaos. You hear that distant tick, tick, tick. That's not a bomb. That's their comfort zone dying. Because they thought this was about revenge. They thought you were here to even the score, that you wanted payback, a petty, emotional, fragile little tantrum wrapped in vengeance. Cute, predictable, containable. But no. What's happening now? This is what happens when something transcends pain. When the blade doesn't break you, it sharpens you. And now, they're looking at something they can't recognize, something that's laughing while the whole system scrambles for logic. They thought they'd get a reaction. Instead, they got a goddamn mutation. You didn't rise from the ashes. You became the F-King Fire. They're whispering now. Not because you retaliated, but because you rewired the narrative they used to control you. Their blueprint for your behavior, obsolete. Their scripts, void. Their strategy, suicide. They brought pain, thinking it would chain you. Instead, it became your fuel, your ink, your code. You didn't retaliate. You rewrote the source material of who the hell you are. And now, every move you make feels like a glitch in their prophecy. You're the bug in their divine architecture, an angel with malware, a demon with divinity in its eyes, saint and psychopath, encoded into one vessel they can't categorize. And that scares the ever-living hell out of them. Because here's the joke. Payback is predictable, but becoming unrecognizable, becoming an outcome they never modeled for, that's terror. They expected you to fight. You became the walking battlefield. You didn't return to prove them wrong. You returned to dismantle the entire metric system they used to define right. You didn't show up to make noise. You made silence so loud, it echoed into every corner of their subconscious. They thought they were the puppeteers, but they forgot. The one who snaps the strings becomes the god. And oh, you snapped them all right. You tore through your programming with a smile that made their data analyst cry in court. See, they were betting on your wounds, but you turned scar tissue into schematics. And now you walk into rooms like a contradiction they can't compute. Silent but echoing, calm but catastrophic, absent yet everywhere. You became the paradox their nervous systems can't regulate, and their right to panic. Because every version of you they prepared for no longer exists. The person they hurt, gone. The person they underestimated, dead. What stands here now is something you can't threaten, can't bait, can't predict, and definitely can't survive. You didn't level up. You left the F-seeking game entirely. You built your own arena, one where the rules mutate, the players dissolve, and the scoreboard catches fire. You didn't return to take a seat at the table. You returned to flip it. With their contracts still signed, with their predictions still echoing like dying prayers. You returned to collect not revenge, but repercussions they never calculated. So now they stutter, they fidget, they disappear from conversations, because they finally understand. This wasn't a comeback, this was an evolution event, and they missed the window. You're not here to finish the story. You're here to make sure the sequel is so unholy, no one ever dares write your name into their plans again. Because this ain't payback. This is erasure. This is the last page of their prophecy catching fire while you smile. And all they can do now is watch you burn holes into reality. Welcome to the part where you stop reacting and start redefining what's even human anymore. So let them study you, let them whisper, let them panic, Because whatever you are now, it's the one thing they never trained for. And baby, that's the real punchline. Huh. Still thinks this is payback? You're adorable. This is extinction. And I hope they scream when the silence hits. Once you taste this kind of truth, it doesn't leave your bloodstream, it mutates you. Just like they mutated you. With betrayal, with control, with that smug little smirk they wore when they thought they broke you. But what they didn't calculate was that some people don't break, some people shatter into weapons. Let me say it louder for the ones still running background checks on your name. You didn't snap. You transcended. They called it revenge. Because that's all they could mentally process. They needed it to be emotional, messy, personal. Because if this wasn't about getting even, then it meant one thing. You evolved. And that's what terrifies them. Because revenge has a limit. But evolution, it's limitless. It's the one thing no prison, no institution, no algorithm, no bloodline curse can account for. They wanted you emotional, so they could contain it. But you went cold. You went ghost protocol. You started answering disrespect with a stillness so severe, their bones started remembering every sin they committed against you. And now, look at them. Double-taking your presence, panicking in their sleep, opening old messages to reread them like they're scanning ancient hieroglyphics for where it all went wrong. Because they know. This is bigger than a comeback. This is the unveiling of a new species of threat, one born from humiliation, but fed on discipline, one forged in chaos, but mastered control. You're the contradiction their morality can't label. You're not good. You're not evil. You're a mirror. One that forces them to see who they really are when the game isn't rigged in their favor. They thought it was payback. That you came back to scream, to curse, to fight. But you didn't bring noise. You brought consequence. You walked back in like an audit. Like a system update that leaves no legacy code behind. You walked in without the need to explain yourself, and that more than anything made them spiral. Because they remembered the version of you that begged to be understood, the one that over-explained, over-forgave, over-loved. But you shed that skin like it was infected. Now every word you say is surgical. Every silence is strategy. Every step you take feels like judgment day for the ones who swore they had the upper hand and don't think they don't feel it. Oh, they feel it. They feel it in their skipped heartbeats when they hear your name. They feel it in the way their group chats go silent when your success gets mentioned. They feel it in their sudden obsession with the word karma. As if saying it enough times might spare them. But karma isn't what's haunting them. You are. You, with your stillness, your smile, your God-tier discipline that makes their chaos look childish. You became the reminder that nothing they did worked. Not the gossip, not the betrayal, not the silence, not the manipulation, nothing. Because while they were busy calculating your pain, you were calibrating your future. While they were breaking you down, you were building the kind of self that doesn't need to raise its voice to cause a blackout. And now you walk into rooms like a living paradox. A saint with a switchblade, a demon with a moral compass, a prophecy in motion with a vengeance they can't measure. Because it's not about them anymore. It's about the standard. The new template of resilience that has your fingerprints all over it. And they know they can't replicate it. They can only witness it and wish they didn't feck it up when it still had mercy. This isn't about revenge. This is a performance of your power. A demonstration that the most dangerous people alive are the ones who already died in public once and came back smiling. So let them spiral, let them analyze, let them whisper in lowercase panic, because the joke is eternal. They thought this was payback. But payback is personal. This is cosmic balance. This is a dimensional echo from every lifetime they tried to silence you in. This is the final audit, the one that exposes every mask, every lie, every fake alliance they built to keep you small. You're not here to get even. You're here to replace the fucking system that let them rise in the first place. And now that you've remembered who you are, they can't unsee it. They can't rewind. They can't reset. They can't survive the version of you that no longer needs anything from them. You hear that silence? That's the sound of their gods retreating, because you just became one, and there's no payback needed. Just presence, just pressure, just power that doesn't need permission. And baby, the world has never been ready for that. And the beautiful irony? They named it. They called it payback. To comfort themselves, to convince their trembling egos that this transformation was still about them, that you were still orbiting their gravitational pull. But you broke the orbit. You burned the map. You detached the entire simulation from their coordinates. This isn't retribution. This is a recode. Because while they were waiting for you to act like your past self, you deleted the algorithm. You became an update they didn't authorize. But now must live under. That's what they'll never say out loud. That you became law in a world where they thought they held the gavel. They're whispering legal war. But what case do they have when every piece of evidence shows you survived what should have killed them? They tried to label you dangerous, but all you did was mirror back their crimes. And when the mirror didn't crack, they did. They're collapsing in real time. Not because you destroyed anything, but because you became something they can't touch without consequence. You became a reminder that some spirits don't ask for justice. They become it. And when that happens, all those little tactics, the silence, the sabotage, the smear campaigns, they become laughable. You didn't burn the bridges. You watched them drown in the rivers they tried to throw you into. And now your name tastes like truth in their mouths, heavy, uncomfortable, unswallowable, because they know. If you were still angry, you'd be reachable, but you're calm now, and that's what's haunting them. Your presence is surgical. Every room you enter becomes a truth serum they can't lie through. Because the frequency you operate on now, it exposes people. You've become a threat, not because you fight, but because you see. And what you see? It frightens the masks right off them. You don't have to scream. You don't have to argue. You just exist. And the vibration alone shakes the scaffolding they've built their illusions on. They thought they destroyed you, but they actually completed you. They triggered the metamorphosis, and now you're here. Not to retaliate, not to explain, but to stand. To be the silent axis around which their entire world crumbles without warning. No fury, no fire, just facts. Just that unflinching gaze that sees through contracts, bloodlines, masks, and performances. You're not emotional, you're electromagnetic. Your aura alters outcomes. And now they're realizing they weren't dealing with a person. They were dealing with a phenomenon that disguised itself as a person just long enough to be underestimated. And that's the most exquisite part. They had time. They had chances, they had warnings, but they chose their games over grace. So now, they get silence, they get distance, they get eclipsed by the very force they tried to erase. Not revenge, not noise, just a quiet, unstoppable correction. Named you, And that correction? It doesn't come with mercy. It doesn't come with explanations. It doesn't knock on doors or ask for invitations. It enters the system like a virus wearing a halo, and suddenly nothing makes sense anymore. The math fails, the logic buckles, the hierarchy scrambles. Because you were never just one of them. You were the exception clause hiding inside their code. The glitch they dismissed as insignificant until it became a full-blown override. Now look at them, choking on their own blueprints, digging through memories for a version of you that doesn't exist, trying to reverse engineer your silence as if it were something they could decode. But you didn't go silent. You went sacred. You rose out of the data they thought they'd buried. But now you're speaking through results, through presence, through consequences so elegant they feel divine. They're not just afraid of what you've become. They're ashamed. Ashamed that they saw you broken and laughed. Ashamed that they used your name like a punchline. And now that same name shows up in rooms they pray to be invited into. You didn't scream. You scaled. You didn't argue. You ascended. And that's why they're glitching. Because their mind can't reconcile the version of you they abused with the entity you've become. A contradiction in human form, a holy storm, a radiant anomaly wrapped in pure psychological precision. Your detachment isn't passive, it's a verdict. And every time you don't react, you're delivering a message louder than their accusations could ever echo. That's the power of transformation, not when you fight their fire with fire, but when you become something fire fears. They called it payback. But what you're serving is reality realignment, an update so severe they're watching their own reflections dissolve into irrelevance. And let's talk about that reflection, because that's the real ghost here, isn't it? You didn't haunt them with revenge. You haunted them with clarity. Every lie they told about you, now it's eating them. Every manipulation, every betrayal, every smug, you'll never make it, now playing on loop in their heads. Because now the only place they see your face is everywhere they failed. You became a mirror so clear, it turned prophetic. Not by exposing them, but by exposing what you endured and what it turned you into. You're no longer in competition. You're in communion with your power now. You don't need validation. You became the proof. So let them panic. Let them pretend it's still about old grudges. Let them gossip about what you did, as if they still have a front row seat to your evolution. Because the truth? They lost access to your energy, access to your influence, access to your kindness, because that's the currency they never respected until it stopped circulating in their direction. You gave them gold, they mistook it for dust. Now they dig through ash, hoping for forgiveness in a language they never bothered to learn. But this new version of you, it doesn't speak apology. It doesn't speak victimhood. It speaks outcome. You are the aftermath, the one that walks without noise but leaves every foundation cracked, not because you tried to hurt them, but because you grew in a direction they never thought was possible, up, out, beyond. And now, you're untouchable, not because you built walls, but because you became sky, unreachable, unpredictable, unforgiving to those who once called your wings delusions. They thought this was payback, but that would mean you cared enough to aim at them. You're not aiming, you're ascending, and the only thing left in your wake is silence, regret, and the realization that they trained a god and called it a joke. Now the joke's walking, breathing, smiling, and the punchline, you, unbothered, unapologetic, unmatched, unfucking forgivable, Not revenge, not rage, just rain. And that rain, it's not crowned in gold. It's forged in silence, not the kind that retreats, but the kind that echoes in every room after you've left, forcing them to sit in the truth they tried to bury with noise. You walk differently now. Not faster, just deeper. Every step feels like prophecy, every glance a verdict. Not because you said anything, but because you no longer need to. And that's what's cracking them from the inside out. Because people like them, they only understand power when it's loud, aggressive, chaotic. But you became something worse. You became still. And stillness, my friend, is terrifying to those who depend on your chaos to stay relevant. They needed you messy, they needed you triggered, they needed you chasing closure like a leash. But you dropped the leash. You dropped the whole dogfight. You're not fighting for your name anymore. You are your name. And it's branded into the psyche of everyone who thought your pain was entertainment. See, the most dangerous revenge isn't revenge at all. It's the evolution you undergo when no one believes you will. It's the process of turning pain into programming, grief into gravity, and silence into the loudest scream they've ever heard. They didn't expect that. They thought you'd lash out, that you'd crumble. They were prepared for your meltdown, but they weren't prepared for your mutation, because what stands in your place now? It doesn't need closure. It doesn't need justice. It is the fucking consequence. Every breath you take is a reminder that they never mattered as much as they believed. That all their sabotage, all their gossip, all their cruelty failed. Not only failed, backfired. Because now the same people who mocked your process are quoting your results. The same ones who left you bleeding are now studying your scars like scriptures, looking for the spell that made you unbreakable. But there is no spell. There's only repetition, discipline, isolation, and the kind of emotional crucifixion that either kills you or resurrects something eternal. You chose eternity, and eternity doesn't explain itself. Now your story isn't the comeback. It's the recalibration of power, where you are no longer trying to prove you're good. You're just proving that nothing they threw at you was enough to stop the inevitable. And they feel it. They feel it when they see your face and their chest tightens. They feel it when someone speaks your name and the room shifts. They feel it in the absence of your need to be seen, because you're not performing anymore. You're just being, and your being is a verdict their subconscious can't overturn. You're not the hero. You're not the villain. You're the goddamn event, a soul quake, a frequency spike, a psychological detonation that makes everyone rethink their strategy. You didn't come back stronger. You came back recoded. And your new blueprint? It doesn't include them. No access, no appeals, no backstage passes to your rebirth. They had their chance, not to worship you, but to respect you. And now they get the silence, the cold, sterile silence of being blocked by destiny itself. Not because you're bitter, but because you're busy building dimensions out of the same dust they tried to bury you in. Busy becoming the blueprint for every soul who was ever mocked for healing. Busy becoming so absolutely undeniable that even your absence causes legal panic. You are not vengeance. You are a dimension shift, a biological anomaly that proves one truth. Pain doesn't destroy people. It just reveals what was always inside. And what's inside you? It's not rage. It's remorseless precision, the kind that walks through old battlefields, smiling like a ghost who built heaven out of landmines. They wanted closure. What they got was extinction. and the slow psychological horror of knowing that the version of you they knew was the weakest you'll ever be. Let that settle in. Let it burn into the data. Because they didn't just lose you, they lost access to the future they never deserved to be a part of. This isn't payback. This is what it looks like when the one they underestimated becomes the very law of reality. And now, they don't need to be punished. They just need to live long enough to watch you reign.